Hello, it is I, Andrine, Jewish American Priestess, and I am here today to offer you another reading for the upcoming month, new moon, that is coming at the end of this week. We have the holiday of Sigd, which is today, and I wish a joyous Sigd to those who celebrate. That's the Ethiopian Hebrew tribe. And we have the Indigenous Peoples Day here in the United States, which has been celebrated as Thanksgiving in the past, but we are trying to bring light to the reality of the situation and celebrating Indigenous peoples rather than the traditional stories that have been passed down under white supremacy. So we have a holiday feast, basically Goyish Sukkot coming up this week, and again the new moon coming. So I'm going to pull out one card from the Mythologia Fennica Tarot deck, which is the tarot deck out of Finland, which brings to light the Kalevala, the stories of the Finnish myths and runes or sagas. So I'm going to take out one card today, and then I'm going to do a Hebrew reading in a pattern from the book. So what do we got today? Let's see if we can pull one. See if one wants to. There, that's the one that wants to come out. And it is the card, the Toast of Ukko. And I'll read to you about the Toast of Ukko. I'm going to read from the book because I do not have 100% knowledge of each of these cards yet. The Toast of Ukko corresponds to the Ace of Cups in the traditional tarot deck, but very loosely. Each of these cards is quite different than what we see in the traditional set. So the Ace of Cups, or the Toast of Ukko, corresponds to the idea of securing the continuation of life, liberated sexuality, conquering of obstacles, developing abundance, celebration, gratitude, respecting the forces of nature, fertility, sharing, ensuring food and well-being for all. The earliest information we have of the worship of Ukko comes from the foreword of Michael Agricola's Psalter. The church didn't look kindly at the old pagan rituals and tried its best to root out these old customs. Many a person ended up in court to give account for the rituals they had practiced, and detailed tales of the rites of the Toast of Ukko can be found in the minutes of these sessions. Ukko was worshipped as the giver of rain and fertility, which is so appropriate to this time of year here in the north. The Toast of Ukko celebrations were customarily held in this story after the spring sowing in case of drought. 3 furrows were plowed around the field with all the horses after the sowing, and then the people gathered at the field's shoulder to raise a toast for Ukko. The toast was usually ale that was produced by placing the grains up on the roof or the eaves to wait for rain. The point of the sacrificial bushel was that it would look favorable in Ukko's eyes, and the god of rain would then water it, and also the fields. A swig of spirit was also acceptable as a toast of Ukko, and people were most likely intoxicated during the celebrations. It was believed that the more drunk people were during the Toast of Ukko, the better the harvest would be. To become intoxicated from ale was already enough to affect the humidity, according to Agricola. Some of the sources also claim that free sex was also practiced during the celebration. The toast proceeded from spells to drinking of Ukko's toast, during which it was customary to sprinkle some of it up into the air as symbolical raindrops. The sacrificial offerings, such as spirits and ale, were taken to a high rock that was called the Mountain of Ukko. The point of these gifts was to prevent the summer from being too dry. Ukko also received some of the food that had been prepared for the celebration and from the ox or sheep that was slaughtered for the occasion. So it's a very old custom rite of fertility and bringing in the rains and abundance, the continuity of the people. It had to do with both fertility in terms of grain and fertility in terms of people. And so the toast of Ukko represents that cornucopia of delights, as well as the fertility of humans and the earth. And about rain, washing things clean and invigorating things, making plants grow. It symbolizes, I mean, in fact, the cups, the Ace of Cups is about love, but it's also about, clear expressions of feelings and growth of love, a brand new thing coming in. So, interesting, in this mythology, it has to do with the rains in spring, but in Hebrew tradition, we pray for the rains in the fall. And that's not to say we don't want rains in their time, whenever that might be. But here we are in the month of Cheshvan still, where the rains are pouring down here, and they're preparing the soil for seeds that are going to be planted and moistening things and helping the world to flourish. And we just went through Sukkot, where we pray for the rain as well. So the toast of Ukko seems highly appropriate for this time of year. I'll set it right there where we can see it. And now I'm going to pull out 7 Hebrunes that will be placed in a spread called the Wedge of Cranes. And I'm going to use this new set of tiles with the gold leaf pen on them. And we're just going to blindly cast each of these down, and then we'll go through and read them one at a time. I'm going to close my eyes and reach in and grab. Okay, number 1, we have the letter Tav. Interesting. Number 2 is the letter Dalet. Number 3 is the letter Gimel. Number 4 is the letter Hey. Number 5 is the letter Tet. Six is the letter Bet. And our last one is the letter Kaf. Okay, so those are our 7 in the Wedge of Cranes. And the first position is what's considered the past, that which is coming to an end in our situation here, what we're ready to leave behind, and the challenges which have taught us. So interestingly, Tav is the last letter in the Hebrew alphabet, so it is about an ending. It's about a seal or a stamp. That which has come before has been signed and sealed. It has to do with judgment on some level, because some people say it looks like a Dalet and a Nun, which spells Din, or Dan, which is about judgment. So, and interestingly, in the tarot, the judgment card is also near the end. It represents the end of a thing, but also the birth of a new thing. So it is about reincarnation, and it's about death and rebirth. It's the number 400 in the Gematria, and 400 is corresponds to the amount of silver coins that Abraham paid for the cave of Machpelah, where Sarah was buried, the first instance of land ownership in Eretz Israel among the Hebrews. So, and that just happened in our Torah reading last week. So 400 is the number of coins. It is a double letter. It represents the moon in the sky, so that's appropriate. We're coming to the end of a month and having a new moon, so we're ending one moon and starting a new one. It has to do with the day Friday in the week, and Friday is the day of the new moon this week. And it has to do with the binary of sovereignty and slavery. So what we're leaving behind is some kind of the ending. You know, we're leaving the end. The end of this month is coming to an end. The end of the end of the moon. The end of the of that 400, of that death of Sarah that we just read about. That's the past. And the present is position number 2. It depicts our situation in the moment. And the moment is the letter Dalet. Dalet is a doorway. So we're leaving something and we're walking through a doorway into the next thing. So we're in this liminal space between the past and the future. The door, it has to do with humility and humbleness. It's the first letter of the name David Melech, the King David, who was a humble king. Despite his many antics in his life, he did have humility before Havaya. And it has to do with the 4 directions and also the 4 seasons. It corresponds to the binary foundation of wisdom and foolishness. So as we go through this doorway, we have to determine what's the wise path to take, as opposed to the foolish path. And also corresponds to the planet Mars, which right now is in retrogrades from October through January, early January. So we have this idea of Mars, which is the war planet, or the agitated planet, looking like it's going backwards right now. So we're in this doorway, we're maybe moving forward, we're maybe moving backwards, but we're in this liminal space where hopefully we are making good choices toward wisdom and also remaining humble as we're standing here in the present, having just left or just leaving the month of Cheshvan. And the third position is the position represents the future, what is about to begin, and which we are now ready for. And that is the letter Gimel, and Gimel is about moving forward, so that's appropriate. It is a foot or a camel that is walking forward into the future. It is the foundation of peace and evil. So ideally we're moving toward peace. It is the day Sunday in the week, also coming up after the new moon, just after the new moon. And it also corresponds to the planet Jupiter in space. Jupiter, whose name in Hebrew is Tzedek, which means justice. So we've had judgment here, but now we're moving toward justice. So hopefully that will be something to look forward to. It is the number 3 in Gematria, so it has to do with the elements of air, fire, and water, the mother elements. And again, because it's the foundation of peace and evil, I think of it as corresponding to the garden, because of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and the word garden in Hebrew, which is gan, starts with the letter Gimel. So maybe it has to do with moving forward toward some kind of garden, some kind of again choices between peace and evil. And now that we know the difference between them, choosing something that is whole rather than broken. So that's what we're moving forward to. That's our upcoming future here. And the position of tile number 4 is our advice, what to do here. And it is the letter He. And He is the letter that tells us to remain present. It is Hineni, which means here I am, and the answer that one gives when one hears one's name called by the divine. Here I am. And all the letters that, all the words that have to do with the verb to be. Havaya, the name of God, meaning being, or Haya, meaning past, Hoveh, meaning present, and Yehiyeh, meaning future, all which make up the divine tetragrammaton, Yud He Vav He. And He is represented twice in the name of the divine, so it's about being present within the divine and having the divine being present with us, just remaining present and paying attention. So our advice for the present is to stay present. And as we move up the second side of our wedge here, the 5th tile corresponds to the energies coming from outside, which is, say, the external influences right now in our situation. And it is the letter Tet. And the letter Tet is a vessel. It's some kind of cup, so not dissimilar from Ukko's cup here. So it's a cup that holds something good. It's sometimes seen as a womb, or because it is the number 9 in Gematria, it represents the 9 months of pregnancy, and so it has to do with fertility. It has to do with holding some kind of liquid that is a good thing within it. And I love that it came up here in correspondence to the toast of Ukko. So the surrounding situation is that there's something gestating. There's some goodness that is hiding within this cup that is getting ready to be born. That we have this cup, and it is holding goodness within it, and has that idea of renewal the same way that Ukko's cup does. So this idea of renewing the land, renewing the body, renewing life as it is able to come forth. So that is our current situation. And then what we have in the 6th position is our biggest hopes and fears. And that letter is the letter Beit. And Beit is, well, it is a house. So a home, perhaps. We're hoping for a home. We're hoping that we find ourselves at home in our bodies and in the planet, in the earth. It also corresponds to the day of Shabbat, which is, again, coming up right after the new moon sets in. And so we have this idea of rest within this letter Beit. So we have a house, and we have an ability to rest in it. It also corresponds to the mouth in the body. So it may have to do with speaking or eating or drinking, maybe drinking out of this cup. And also about resting in the house. It is the binary foundation of life and death. So I would say, yes, the biggest hopes and fears are that hopes that we will have life, and the fears is that we'll have death. That's what's presenting itself as our greatest hopes and fears right now in this situation of the current time. It's always hard to go into the darkness of the year. So yeah, let's hope for life and not be afraid of death should it come, but at least hope for life. And our final letter in this reading is representative of the solution and consequence of this situation. And it is the letter Kaf. And Kaf is the palm of a hand. It is representative of power. So we have power coming from someone's hand, possibly the hand of the divine. And it represents the sun in the sky. And as our days get shorter and shorter, our sun seemingly disappearing, that's one of the consequences of this season for sure. And yet we have power within our situation that maybe by holding on to this idea of gestation, of this cup, of this idea of fertility, we have some modicum of power about what comes on, or we have this, at least this idea that we may feel empowered as we do ritual to help with fertility, to call in the rain. And it has to do with the wings of Shekhinah that are shielding us from harm, like the top of the sukkah, which is called schach, and it has two cuffs in it. It is the barrier that's between us and the sun, again, which is represented by this letter as well, that will protect us from the sun, but still let the sunlight in. So it's this permeable barrier that we have. If we're able to set up boundaries, we'll have the ability to let in that which is good and filter out that which is harmful. So it has to do with power, koach, and also has to do with the binary foundation of wealth and poverty. So if we do our prayers and our petitions toward the divine, and perform ritual to ask for the healing rains to come, we may find ourselves wealthy with a safe harvest, with a safe home, with appropriate gestation and presence and the ability to move forward. So that is our solution and consequence of our situation here. So as we look at the whole picture here with the cup of Ukko, the toast of Ukko, I know that it can be challenging for people to think of these ancient, we'll say pagan ways as appropriate to the foundations of Judaism and the worship of the divine. But for me, all divinity is divinity. So this idea of Ukko, who is the sky god, it's not that, it's just one aspect of the divine. We have this sky god that gives us the rain in the appropriate time. And here is a depiction of the cup of Ukko, that we perform this ritual just like we do at Sukkot to call in the rain. And we've had something that's ending. We've got the Tav showing us that the previous month is just ending. We are currently in this doorway, this liminal space between Cheshvan and Kislev. We are remaining humble. We are about to move forward into the month of Kislev, which has many different rituals in it. But our task right now is to be present, to stay present. That we have this surrounding energy of a cup, of a cup and of fertility, the same exact symbolism. A cup of fertility that has something good in it, good, which is tov in Hebrew, and it starts with the letter tet. So we've got tov, we've got good within our cup, and that we are hoping for a peaceful home, for Shabbat, for rest within our home, and hoping for a good life or a good death if that seems appropriate. But our greatest hope is that we'll have a foundation, a peaceful place, a restful place to be, and our outcome will be that we'll take power over what we can control, which is to say, we can ask for the rain. We can bring the cup and drink to Ukko or Shekhinah or Havaya or Hashem, however you perceive our sky god, who will provide us with rain, and out of that we'll give that power maybe back up to divinity where it belongs, because all we can do is ask. We don't get to make the rains fall, but we do get to raise a cup and hope for a peaceful home, and remain present through all of this as we step forward after resting in humility as this month ends and we move forward into the next. I hope that has been a useful reading for you. I'm really enjoying exploring these cards and how they correspond with the Hebrew letters for me and my heritage being a Finnish Jew. And I hope to see you next time. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this reading. We'll talk to you again soon. And Chodesh Tov.